to hunt for Arvilla irons. She wasn't really upset, but she had insomnia. And at 3:30 one morning, she got up and she put the name Arvilla Irons into her computer. And suddenly, the ancestors and heirs of Arvilla Irons appeared on the computer screen before her. We had found a Johns Hopkins foster mother. One of her heirs, Larry Irons, had left a message. And in that message, he had indicated an interest in making contact with other relatives. I wrote Larry back, and I asked him if I could make further contact. He did not write me. Well, I can understand. I mean, if somebody wrote you, you know, and said, I'm interested in your granny, what she was doing back in 1920. I mean, you know, that sounds kind of strange, doesn't it, you know? But it was a very emotional moment about a week later when I got a phone call from Gary Irons, Larry's brother. And Gary, this is a picture of Gary here. And Gary confirmed certain things. He confirmed that Arvilla had, in fact, worked in the Harriet Lane home at the time of the study. He confirmed that she had given birth to a child on March 9th, 1919. And that child's name was Douglas. All right? Now, at this time, I think I would like to acknowledge the contributions of my third co-author, Mr. Gary Irons, who supplied a lot of the information I'm going to use in the rest of this talk. So, would you stand up, Gary? Yeah, thanks for everything. We talked a great deal over a number of times about Gary's family. And he told me some things about his grandmother, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first, we'll deal with the question of why call the baby Douglas, or pardon me, why call the baby Albert B. if his name was Douglas? And that brings us to a SEPA story. And it's a very good SEPA story. 2 years ago, when we were meeting in Charlotte, I told my students they have to meet a fellow named Charles Brewer. And that if you meet Charles Brewer, it will just be something you will remember. And so they were looking to find Charles, expecting some sort of legend. I got 5 minutes, 15. And so basically what ended up happening was, after telling us a number of stories, Charles was leaving, and I said, Charles, if the baby's name was not Albert B., why do you believe that it was he called him that? And he reminded me that Watson's was named after John Albert Broadus, a very prominent Baptist minister in the area. And that Albert B., he thought, came from John Albert Broadus. Watson, by the way, seemed to have a proclivity for making up verbal names. He and Rosalie would marry and have 2 children. Their children's names were William and James. And I guess you can guess who one of his favorite relatives were. Gary also told me about well, let's go a little bit to Arvilla's life. Maurice, which is Gary and Larry's father, was born in 1915. Douglas was born in 1919, and our villa was at the Harriet Lane home at that time. In the early 1920s, she moves in with the Brashears family in rural Maryland. She and Douglas do. And in 1926, she marries Wilbur Hood. In 1939, a daughter is born to Hoodie and Arvilla named Gwendolyn. Arvilla would live a long life and died 89 years of age in 1988. After the funeral, Gwendolyn was going through an old trunk. The old trunk contained mementos private and precious, the landmarks of Arvilla Irons' life. In it were two portraits. One Gwendolyn recognized was a baby who was Maurice at about 4 years of age. The second one was a child she did not recognize. And she asked Gary who this second baby was. Gary told her that it was Douglas. Gwendolyn, I think understandably, became quite upset. It was only then she learned she had a second brother. Now, at the time, Gary did not know there was a Watson film. Of course, I recognized the immediate importance of it. And so I asked Gary if he would send me a photographic copy of Douglas. As he was taking out the photograph from its glass case, he found the address of the photographic studio on the back. It was less than 3 kilometers from the Harriet Lane home. Now, here's a picture of Albert at 8 months and 26 days of age. It's not an excellent picture. There really is no best picture of Albert. Probably this is the best overall picture. The resolution is not all that good, but I would like to call attention to a few features. First of all, please note that if you look at the right eyebrow, it's rather long. You can see that. Notice the eyes. You cannot see much distinction there. That's really unfortunate because that's what we use for biometric analyses. A great deal of information is from that. Notice that Albert has a cute little piggy nose. We know that it's a cute little piggy nose because you can see the top of his head and get a pretty good sight of his nostrils. You couldn't do that if his nose wasn't upturned. Also notice that there's a rather small distance between his upper lip and his mouth. So that seems to be a characteristic feature. Also, his mouth has what one of my students referred to as a cupid bow lip. That is, his top lip is larger than his bottom. Most of you all, in case you don't know, look at the person beside you and you'll find they do not have a cupid bow lip. Very few people do. Also, there's a little Dotch right spot here, and you can see it better in some photographs, and that's a little dimple. It's not a Kirk Douglas Grand Canyon dimple, but nevertheless, it is a dimple. Now, here is the picture of Douglas. Now, the first thing you know is that there's a furry object in the room. Now, actually, that's not true. When you become a parent, as I'm sure my son can tell you, you sign a contract agreeing to do various foolish things in the course of your life. One of the foolish things that you agree to do is to get your child's portrait taken. The child is going to be drooling and not caring. You're going to be over there as a parent going, hey, 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 you know, jumping up and down, right? Yeah. And that's what's happening here. Now, forget about that, but look at the features. If you look at the eyebrow, we have a long eyebrow, we have a piggy nose, and we have a cupid bow lip, and a little dimple. Now, I asked my peers, because we're no experts at this, is there anything in this photograph that tells you these children cannot be the same person?